Hey everybody, I hope you're all doing well, continuing to work hard and push forward with your work and all your classes, and you're reaching out to your teachers who might be able to help you if you're a little bit confused. We're going to kind of continue pushing forward. Over the last couple of days, we kind of started a small little, I guess you could say, a mini unit. You were looking at the Ottomans sort of over in the Middle East, their conquest of Constantinople, some of the tactics that their leaders like Suleiman used to gain and maintain power within their empire. And today, we're kind of shifting our focus over towards the East, over towards China. And we're going to be examining the Ming Dynasty or the Ming Empire and some of the strategies that they used to gain and maintain power in their territory in East Asia. And I think you're going to see the strategies, the tactics, and some of the methodologies that were used by the Ming are going to be very similar to what we see used by empires around the world. And you should be starting to kind of see these enduring issues and enduring ideas that are going to be coming together. All right, so I do want to start by just kind of giving you a little bit of background info for today, just because we are shifting gears a little bit. And I'll post another screencast for your work for tomorrow, where you'll examine a little bit more in depth some of the exploits and the achievements of the Ming, specifically with regard to exploration. But I do want to just kind of bridge that gap, kind of that transition between the Ottomans and the Ming for today. Okay, so to start, just to give you a little bit of geographic context, you were looking at the Ottomans over the last couple of days, and if you can kind of see over here, I'm not quite sure if you can see my mouse or not with this fancy screencast, but the starred city right over here is Constantinople, and that's the city that you all had looked at, not just when we looked at the Byzantine Empire a couple of weeks ago, but when you looked at the Ottomans, right? This is a really important strategic city located right on the crossroads of trade between Europe and the Middle East. Now, once this city is conquered by the Ottomans, it's going to really be a barrier towards European trade with the Middle East into South Asia and East Asia as well, right? So the Europeans are going to have to look elsewhere, right? The Ottomans are an Islamic empire, and we remember from our time of looking at the Crusades, there's some bad blood going on between European Christians and Middle Eastern Muslims at this time. So Europeans are going to take to the seas and they're going to sail westward, right? Specifically from Spain and Portugal due to their location on the Iberian Peninsula, kind of jutting out right here into the Atlantic Ocean. So we're going to start to see some westward expansion. Right? No longer can we see Europeans cross through Constantinople as freely on their way towards the Middle East, East Asia, interconnecting with the Silk Roads. So we're going to see a push towards westward expansion. So we'll start to see exploration down around the southern tip of Africa, and eventually explorers like Christopher Columbus turning west and encountering new peoples. And we'll get to that in a couple of weeks. Okay? But our focus for today is really kind of happening concurrently or at the same time as we see the rise of the Ottomans and the expansion of the Ottomans into this large empire. We're going to be kind of taking a look at what's going on in East Asia, right? And we're going to be looking at specifically the Ming Dynasty. Okay, so just to kind of review a little bit, this year we've looked at a whole bunch of Chinese dynasties, and I'm sure you probably don't remember all of them, perfectly, which is fine. Right? Really, at the very beginning of the year, we looked at the early River Valley civilizations, the Yellow River Valley in China, and then we kind of got into the Qin Dynasty when we talked about Shi Huangdi, sort of his persecution of anybody of scholars who would question his legalist, strict, authoritarian rule. Right? Remember, Shi Huangdi was really, really strict as a result of coming to power after the context of the Warring States period. Right, this time of sort of civil war and intense chaos in China. So Shi Huangdi unified China and was able to sort of establish a centralized government by using strict force. Right? And then we took a look at sort of the Tang and the Song a couple of weeks ago, just really quickly at the Golden Age. We took a look at printing. We took a look at paper money, gunpowder, things of that nature. The Yuan Dynasty. We talked a little bit about that. You can see there's a little bit of a typo here. It should be 13 1368, not 13368. But the Yuan dynasty was essentially the Mongol domination of China. We took a look kind of at the Mongol expansion in Asia, and we're really going to be focusing on the Ming for the next couple of days, right? The Ming dynasty is going to restore rule in China to the native Chinese, right? The Yuan dynasty was Mongols who were ruling China. Now we're going to see the Ming, who are historically Chinese, who are going to reclaim the Chinese, I guess you could say, throne for native Chinese individuals, okay? So just really quickly for the Ming dynasty, just to kind of set some context. The Chinese overthrew the Mongols. So the Ming are going to overthrow the Mongols and restore self-rule under the Ming dynasty. And during this time, we're going to see a large revival in not just the economy, but also some cultural aspects of Chinese life. Now, in the early 1400s, China began voyages of exploration. I think a lot of us, when we think of the age of exploration, we think of Europeans, we think of people exploring the Indian Ocean, maybe the Atlantic Ocean, kind of coming into contact, the old world and new world, if you will. But really in the early 1400s, before the voyages of Christopher Columbus and all of those famous European explorers, we see the Chinese really taking the lead, exploring the Indian Ocean, the South China Sea, navigating on over to East Africa. The Chinese really were at the forefront of oceanic exploration during this time. Now we will see, kind of in your next lesson tomorrow, you will see that later on, the Ming dynasty is going to sort of shift away from exploration, turn more isolationist, not really wanting to necessarily encounter foreigners, and they're going to sort of take a more traditional and isolationist approach. But we will see China during this time really heavily influence the regions surrounding China. So that would be Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia. We'll see the establishment of what's called tributary states, where you'll see parts of Korea that are paying money towards the Chinese government in return for trade, in return for access to Chinese cultural goods, and so on. So we do see China as a really, really influential power during the Ming Dynasty era in East Asia. Okay, so what I'd like you to do really quickly is in the folder 5.3, there is a video that'll give you some background on the Ming Dynasty and the Great Wall. Right? We talked about sort of the origins of the Great Wall under the Qin Dynasty. It sort of started as this network of small walls made from almost mud or earth, and it would gradually expand over many, many, many years and many different dynasties into what we know it to be today. And the Ming Dynasty are going to really expand the Great Wall in some large public works projects. So I'd like you to go ahead and take a look at the video that's in the folder 5.3, kind of as some background. And when you're done with that, you're going to see your little digital gallery walk in folder 5.3. Right, now, this is an assignment that we've done before, right? Gain and maintain power. You should be starting to see kind of some similarities, not just between the Chinese dynasties, but you'll see some similar methods kind of across different empires, different regions, which is really good. So you can kind of see this, sort of universal idea of power as it relates to government and rule over time, right? Specifically, I want you to take a look at document 4. This is going to help you to kind of show how these ideas endure over time. So document 4 specifically doesn't deal with the Ming, but it deals with China at a later time. So I want you just to kind of see how these ideas are similar in China kind of over time, okay? And when you're done, please just make sure you click Submit Assignment. It'll get turned into me and I'll take a look at it, all right? So good luck with this for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. Please make sure you're watching that video that I just had mentioned. That'll kind of give you a little bit more visual and a little bit more background about the Ming to kind of help you better understand sort of how the Ming Dynasty went about establishing and expanding their power. Okay? Good luck. Reach out with any questions or concerns that you may have, and I'll be talking to you tomorrow.